Jinzo is perhaps the card on our list that has been relevant for the longest period of time in the meta, whether that be during his debut when he became an instant staple, to the period of Monarchs where he was a good tech option, to simply being a good side deck option against trap heavy decks. Jinzo has quite a hefty history of meta relevance, but despite that resume, Konami hasn't given him nearly enough support to compete on his own. Some of the stuff out there like Law of Cosmos and Psychic Bounder are great, but this, like Toons, is another one of those where we added some cards to the existing pool of support to make it really go. The premise of the Jinzo archetype is as Konami has thus far designed it. Capitalize on your opponent playing traps by accessing the Jinzo's support most powerful effects. There's also a second line of effects that are briefly supported in the Jinzo cards in that they can take control of opponents' monsters, so we've added a little bit in that regard as well. Our monster lineup begins with two new versions of Jinzo, aptly named Jinzo 2.0 and Jinzo 3.0, both will always take on the name Jinzo, so you can only run a max of 3 copies between all 3 versions. Jinzo 2.0, when summoned by the effect of a card that mentions Jinzo, pops all your opponent's spells and traps. He also has a built-in way of summoning himself during the main phase, which is a quick effect where you can tribute a Jinzo monster to special summon him from hand. Jinzo 3.0 is unaffected by trap cards and also has a way to special summon himself, by banishing one Jinzo monster from your graveyard. His other effect is that you banish one trap from either graveyard to target one card on the field and destroy it. Next up is Jinzo Clone. Jinzo Clone takes on the name of Jinzo while on the field or in the grave. He also has an inherent special summoning ability similar to Cyber Dragon, but instead if only your opponent controls a spell or trap. Finally, you can tribute him to special summon one Jinzo from your hand, deck, or graveyard, so the instant access to any of the Jinzos, Jinzo Original or 2.0 or 3.0. Next is Jinzo the Trap Monster, a level 4 1800 beatstick who can't be destroyed by traps, and the additional quick effect of being able to treat one face-up card on the field as a trap until the end of the turn. This effect can be used when a monster is going to swing over him because he can't be destroyed by traps, but also in tandem with the Jinzos in order to capitalize on their effects. The last monster we have is Toy Jinzo, who has a hand trap-like effect where you can place him face up in your opponent's spell trap zone as a continuous trap where he stays on the field until the next end phase, and while he's there, unoccupied zones in his column can't be used, so perhaps a way to block your opponent from getting a 5th monster on the field, but his other effect is helpful as well, where when he's destroyed, you can special summon one Jinzo from your hand or graveyard. The spells start off with Resurrection J, no relation to Resurrection F. This card is a continuous spell that allows you to target one Jinzo in your graveyard and special summon it, and if you do, this card is treated as a continuous trap until the end of the next turn. This has some implications. First, if you bring out the original Jinzo, then he'll negate the rest of this card's effect, where you have to pop a monster you control during the end phase of the turn you activate Resurrection J, but also it allows you to use this effect during your opponent's turn since it is a trap if Jinzo is not negating it. Next is Mind Warp, a field spell that plays to a tactic from some of the other Jinzo support cards like Cosmo Channeling and Jinzo Laird that relate to stealing opponents' monsters. First, this card treats all spells in the grave and all equip and continuous spells on the field as traps, so it gives you fuel for cards like Jinzo 3.0 and the Machine Menace while also widening the reach of Jinzo and others. The other effect is that when Jinzo battles, at the start of the damage step, you can pop a trap card on the field, then switch control of one monster you control with one your opponent controls. Next up we have Magical Trap, a quick play spell that treats all face-up cards on the field except Jinzo and cards that mention it as traps. It has an additional graveyard effect where while you control Jinzo, you can banish this card to target one card on the field and destroy it if it is a trap. This card has a few synergies with the deck, one of them being that it allows the OG Jinzo to negate anything on the field for that turn. Another is that it makes Machine Menace a near field wipe. It also works well with Mind Warp because Mind Warp will treat it as a trap in the graveyard, so you can use the graveyard effect as a spell speed too. Finally, we have the Art of Jinzo. This card can pop a trap on the field, then adds a Jinzo or a card that mentions it from your deck to your hand. So all in all, a very powerful search card that combos well with cards like Toy Jinzo, and another card you'll see as we get into the traps. Ironic that the anti-trap deck has some traps, but there's only one and it is pretty crucial. Gifts from the Cosmos is a normal trap that you can set in your opponent's spell and trap zone, which makes it combo well with cards like the Art of Jinzo and some others. When this card is destroyed, you can activate effects depending on how it was destroyed. If it was destroyed by a card that mentions Jinzo, including its own built-in effect, you can special summon one Jinzo monster from your hand. And if by a player who didn't control it on the field, you can draw one card. So the primary combo here is to set it on your opponent's field, then pop it with the Art of Jinzo to get a search, a draw, and a special summon Jinzo monster from your hand. So that does it for the Jinzo support. Hope you enjoyed. Would love to get your thoughts and feedback in the comments. And make sure you like and subscribe. Next up, we're debuting another Yugi monster that somehow keeps popping up despite it being the quote-unquote one of the weakest monsters around.